My name is Ivy Duncan, and I'm 33 years old. Last Thanksgiving, right around noon, I stood in a rented event hall on the edge of Denver, watching nearly 300 people take their seats at the longest table this city has probably ever set. Then, the side door opened. My mother walked in first. My sister came right behind her, phone already up, already recording, and I watched an entire room go quiet, in waves, like someone slowly turning down a volume knob. 6 years earlier, my family had left my Thanksgiving plate on their front steps, wrapped in foil like something you'd feed a stray. My mother texted me. I wasn't presentable enough for her table. I ate that meal alone in my car a few houses down, and then I drove away from all of them for good. What my mother did next, in front of nearly 300 strangers, is the reason I'm telling you this. But none of them, walking through that door, understood what they were actually stepping into. It was bigger than the building. If you've ever been told loudly or quietly that you didn't measure up to your own family, this one's for you. Drop a comment when you're done and subscribe because there's a lot more coming. To understand that silence, we have to go back 6 years, to a town called Millhaven and a version of me that smelled permanently like disinfectant. I was 27, renting a room above a laundromat, working mornings at the Millhaven Value Inn, and cleaning private houses until dark, doctors' houses, teachers' houses, the kind my mother used to point at from the car, like exhibits. My knuckles cracked constantly. I kept salve in my glove compartment and a folded index card in my wallet with a business name on it that didn't exist yet. One I whispered to myself while scrubbing grout, like a promise. That November, 2 days before the holiday, my mother called while I was flipping a mattress. Dinner at 2 sharp, she said. My sister Paige was making it a formal year. Then, right before hanging up, her signature line, "Don't embarrass me." She never said goodbye. Women like my mother don't bother. They just leave you holding the weight of what they said instead. You'd need to see my mother's kitchen to understand her. She grew up the daughter of a school custodian, and kids in Millhaven called her the janitor's girl. All through high school, a story she told like a medal from a war she was still fighting. She married my father, Gene, a steady man who managed a parts counter, and spent 30 years scrubbing that old poverty off our name. Paige had married money and a house with columns, which made her the family's proof of success. I cleaned motel rooms, which made me the weather, tolerated, occasionally apologized for. That Sunday before the holiday, Paige spread cardstock across the counter, announcing an elegant adults-only dinner. My mother nodded and mentioned she'd ordered place cards for a family dinner of 10 people who all shared a last name. I remember wondering, just briefly, whose names would actually be on them. Then I let it go, because letting go was the one skill I'd practiced longest. I should have counted those cards. Thanksgiving morning, my coworker quit with no notice, leaving me 14 rooms to turn over alone. I'd planned that day like a wedding, traded shifts to be done by noon, packed a clean sweater in the car so I could arrive looking like a daughter instead of hired help. Instead, I stripped beds until my arms burned. At 11, I texted my mother, "Running late, coming straight from work, save me a seat." It showed as read. Instantly, no reply. By 1:30, still in uniform, hair flat, smelling like a hospital hallway, I made a choice. Shower and be late, or drive straight over and be almost on time. I believed my family measured love by punctuality, not appearance. I chose the clock. I chose wrong. I drove across town with the windows cracked, rehearsing apologies at every light. At 2:40, I turned onto their street and saw every car already parked. The dining room window glowed gold. A curtain twitched once, the way curtains move when someone drops them fast. I parked, grabbed my garment bag out of habit, and walked to the door. Locked. The porch light was already on. In the middle of the afternoon, which is its own message, I rang the bell, heard chairs, heard my aunt's laugh. Heard silverware. Nobody moved toward the door. I rang again. Then I looked down. On the top step, centered like it had been staged, sat a paper plate wrapped in foil. My name written across it in thick capital letters. Turkey, stuffing, green beans lined up like pencils, a roll going stiff in the cold. Whoever made that plate had taken real care with it. That's the part that hollowed me out, standing on my own mother's porch, holding a warm meal with my name on it, while my family ate on the other side of a locked door. My phone buzzed. "You can eat outside. You're not put together enough for the table." I looked through a gap in the curtains. Cloth napkins, my sister's little white place cards, 8 of them, 8 chairs, 8 people eating. There had never been a 9th chair. Whatever I was to that family, the table had been telling the truth about it since before the turkey went in the oven. One more thing snagged in my mind, though it took years to matter. The handwriting on the foil wasn't my mother's tight, slanted cursive. It was big, round, careful, with a long, looping tail. I was too busy breaking apart to wonder whose hand it actually was. I drove to the end of the block and parked under an oak tree because I didn't trust myself at the wheel. I peeled back the foil and ate 3 bites off the steering wheel. The turkey was still warm, which somehow made it worse. A neighbor, walking her dog, tapped on my window. "Honey, is that your dinner?" I gave her the smile you learn in service work. "Just heading out. Big family, small table." She looked at me a beat too long, memorizing it. I understood years later, then walked on. I pulled away without slowing at the house. In the rear view, the porch light still burned over an empty step. I didn't know it yet, but I was driving toward the rest of my life. That plate came with me. It never really left. For 3 days, my phone stayed silent. Nobody called to ask where I'd gone. Sunday night, I wrote out 2 full screens explaining everything. The double shift, the quitting coworker, what it does to read your own name on foil, then deleted it. Because explaining yourself to people who locked a door is just knocking with extra steps. I sent 1 line instead. Message received. I won't bother the table again. Then I started blocking numbers one by one until my cousin Reagan called and stopped me cold. She didn't apologize. She said there was something in the family group chat I'd need to see someday. Not yet, but someday. And told me to keep her number and my father's unblocked and to go build a life so big I'd forget the porch existed. I counted out my tip jar that night. $1,800. That's what I moved to Denver with the week after Thanksgiving. I rented a room in a house full of nursing students, took an overnight cleaning job at a dental office, and learned an entire city by its empty parking lots at 2 in the morning. Mostly, I thought about my grandmother Opal, the only person in that family who ever looked at my chapped hands like they meant something. Once, when my mother made a comment about my uniform, Opal turned my palm up and said, "Clean hands are hands that worked." She left me her recipe box when she died, and 1 letter I've still never read aloud. In Denver, I taped a scrap of paper to my mirror with a company name on it, Lucent, so it'd be the first and last thing I saw each day. And I kept the plate, washed and flattened under textbooks in a manila envelope, like a document. Some people keep photographs of the good days. I kept proof I'd never negotiate with the bad one. Reagan called in January with the official version. The story my mother was serving relatives with coffee, in which I'd shown up late, refused to come inside, and stormed off in a jealous rage. There had been no screaming, just a locked door and a text I could have framed. But a lie with a head start rarely gets checked against the person it's about. It just fits what people already believe. Reagan asked if I wanted her to set the record straight. No, I told her. Let them keep the story. I'll keep the receipts of my own life. She laughed and said I sounded like Grandma Opal. Best compliment I've ever gotten. 6 years is a long time. It turned out to be exactly long enough. Year 1 was me, a used hatchback and a trunk more organized than most operating rooms, the overnight clinic job by day, private accounts nights and weekends. I out-detailed everyone instead of undercutting anyone. Spent grocery money on a certification course. Sat front row taking notes like the degree students around me were competition. Because they were. My first client's check came out right. Right name. Right amount. I photocopied it, stuck it beside the torn paper that said Lucent. Proof and promise side by side. The real turn came on a Tuesday when Dr. Ackhaffer, the clinic owner, watched me scrub a foot pedal nobody would ever check. Patients don't check it, I told him, but germs don't care what patients check, and neither do I, he laughed. Then he stopped laughing. You're the only one who's ever cleaned that pedal. His contracted cleaning company was big, cheap, and sloppy, and he'd been unhappy for 2 years. Notes started appearing on the front desk. Then a question, what would you charge to take the whole building yourself? I named a fair number. He said yes before I finished the sentence. Then he told me the thing that changed everything. More than the money did get an LLC and insurance because I'd rather pay a company than a person. And you should be a company. 6 weeks later, I stood in a print shop holding the operating agreement for Lucent Cleaning LLC. My name typed where names go. I cried in my car afterward. Big, ugly, grateful sobbing. The last time I'd held something that mattered in that seat. It had been turkey on a paper plate. Same seat. Different cargo. That same week, an envelope I'd been avoiding for 3 days finally got opened. At midnight, outside the clinic. A past due notice on my parents' second mortgage. 90 days behind in an amount I recognized instantly, the exact figure that had left my account every month for 3 years. Cash into my mother's hand. Called gas money, so neither of us had to say what it really was. The daughter who wasn't put together enough had been holding the house up. The payment stopped the week of the porch. Not a strategy, I just left and nobody called. I waited to feel guilty. What came instead was colder and steadier. They'd counted on me, the same way they'd counted their 8 chairs. I filed the envelope in my glove box and sent nothing back. By year 3, Lucent was me, +2 Selena, a single mom who understood the value of receipts, and Marcus, a veteran who ironed his shirt to interview for a job stripping wax. I paid them what the work actually cost the body and set one rule that had nothing to do with disinfectant. Nobody eats standing up. Every job site got a real break table. Word traveled, the way it does, until a client described us on the phone as the company that treats their cleaners like people. Best marketing line, we never wrote. Reagan kept a line open to Millhaven, whether I asked or not. Paige married into a food distribution business, Whitfield Provisions, and took over its invoicing and most of its sentences. My name never came up at the wedding. It came up once elsewhere, Reagan telling me my mother described me to people as a cautionary tale. A girl who scrubs toilets in Denver. She's not wrong, I said. They're spotless. Year 4 nearly broke us. A property group that made up a third of our revenue started paying late. Then later. Then not at all. I had 11 people on payroll and a predatory loan agreement in front of me, pen at the signature line, when the phone rang. An unknown Millhaven number that turned my whole body to concrete. It wasn't bad news. It was a nurse, calling on behalf of Mrs. Hollies, my old neighbor, admitted overnight, who'd badgered the staff into finding me because she wasn't planning to leave this world with something unsaid. "You're the girl who ate dinner in her car," she told me. "I never forgot what I saw on that porch. I just wanted you to know somebody witnessed it." I put the pen down. The next morning, I renegotiated our contract like a woman with nothing to apologize for. We stayed. The loan went in the shredder. The year after, I stopped waiting for business to find us. Belmont Health Partners 9 clinics, a facilities director named Renata who ate vendors alive at renewal, skipped the glossy folders and demanded a live walkthrough. I showed her what her current vendor missed, the underside of the counter, the sterilization door handle, the foot pedal, a mismatched inventory sheet. "Where did you train?" she asked. "Housekeeping," I said. "Millhaven Value Inn, 6 years. Best infection control instincts in the state. They just never called it that." We won all 9 clinics. A competitor had reportedly called me a motel maid playing dress-up. Renata told him she'd take a maid over a salesman in any building where people bleed. The week we leased our first real office, I finally unpacked the box that had followed me through 3 moves and opened the manila envelope for the first time in years. The plate had softened at the edges. The foil long gone. But the marker had only faded, never surrendered. I had it framed, no questions asked at the shop, gloves and all, and hung it behind my desk with a brass plaque underneath, reserved seating. But here's what I never told anyone. Under the frame shop's good light, I really looked at that handwriting for the first time. Instead of just the pain attached to it. Big, round, careful letters. A long, gentle tale. My mother has never once written gently in her life. Standing there, I finally let myself ask the question from the porch. If she didn't write my name, who did? The long table started by accident in year 5, when I found our newest hire signing up for a holiday shift we barely needed, rather than sit alone in his apartment. I canceled the shift, ordered folding tables by 6 a.m., and by Thursday noon, 30 people were eating together in the warehouse. "Everyone eats on real plates here," I managed to say, "and everyone gets a chair." They thought it was a toast. It was policy. By year 6, we were planning for 300 seniors from a nearby retirement community, night shift workers, anyone with an empty chair where family should be. Rented china. One rule on a banner over the door, no paper plates. Mrs. Hollies rode in on the second bus that first year, took my arm, claimed her seat near the kitchen, and told me every year on her way out, better than last year. Keep going. After an elderly man froze in the doorway once, unsure if he was really allowed in, we started printing name cards, hospitality, and also the exact opposite of a locked storm door. By year 6, Reagan visited, toured the warehouse, and slid her phone across my counter. On the screen, the real family group chat screenshotted years earlier, timestamped 1:11 p.m. that Thanksgiving while I was stripping bed 14. Paige, she's coming straight from work in that uniform. Paige again, just leave her plate outside, she'll get the hint. My mother, fine, I'm not dealing with the drama when she cries. 2 thumbs up from relatives, the whole crime scene, 4 people tall. It's fine, I told Reagan, and mostly it was. You can't be freshly wounded by an old scar, only finally see its shape. But one thing was missing. Who actually carried the plate out? She looked down. That's not mine to hand you, she said, the first evasive thing I'd ever heard from her. 2 nights later, I drove the 50 minutes back to Millhaven and parked under that same oak, headlights off. The house needed paint. The porch light burned the same yellow. My hand found the door handle. 6 years and 1 screenshot had me composing speeches in the dark. Knocking would have felt incredible for 90 seconds. Then handed my mother a new story for the salon. Some doors you don't knock on twice. I drove home and slept better than I had in months. That fall, Lucent crossed 100 employees and won Small Business of the Year. I sent Selena to accept it and sat in the audience clapping until my hands hurt. A photographer caught me anyway, and that photo led a reporter named Nadia straight to me, the anonymous founder, the framed plate, the warehouse dinner. She wanted to run my name and my face. Thanksgiving morning. Everything in me that still lived above that laundromat wanted to say no. But I just watched Selena hold an award because I was too guarded to walk a stage myself, and somewhere out there was a 27-year-old eating alone in a parked car who needed to know how this story could end. Run it, I said. Just leave the handwriting on the plate out of it. There's a question there even I can't answer yet. Neither of us knew the answer was already on its way. If you've ever eaten a holiday meal alone in your car, you know that particular quiet. Tell me in the comments where you were when your family showed you your place. And subscribe, because next, mine finds out exactly where hers is now. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, a vendor bid landed in my inbox for the 300 meals we'd need. Whitfield Provisions, my brother-in-law's letterhead, his signature. A cover letter closing with a line typed by a man with no idea what he was typing. It would be an honor to serve your table, Ms. Duncan. He didn't know. For 6 years, Millhaven had been a place that happened to me. Now it was mailing me proposals. From that afternoon on, I knew exactly who they were. And they had no idea who I'd become. I pulled Trey's file the way I'd pull anyone's, vetted on paper, on record, on references. It wasn't close. Supplier judgments. A corrected late food safety citation. Complaints about shorted orders. A settled wage dispute and a second one pending. That last one ended it, twice over. Reagan gave me the rest that night, Trey robbing the schedule to cover interest, Paige telling everyone they were expanding, my mother telling church they were doing wonderfully. Then she texted me a photo of the legal notices page, a pre-foreclosure filing on my parents' house. 90 days from a sheriff's sale, wedged between a storage auction and a bake sale ad. I don't do revenge. I do due diligence. But the diligence had just returned a verdict bigger than any food contract. The arithmetic was simple and brutal. When my envelopes stopped, they refinanced. When that reset, my father's back forced early retirement and the pension didn't stretch. They borrowed against the house again, quietly, the same way my mother handled everything shameful. None of them ever connected the good years to me. In the story my mother told, my leaving wasn't proof of what I'd been holding up. It was proof I'd always been a drain. You cannot audit a family that keeps books like that. I was reaching for my attorney's number when the office buzzer interrupted. Flowers. A grocery store bouquet. No name on the card. Just a slanted, careful hand. Proud of you. I set it in my desk drawer on top of the envelope where the unanswered questions lived. We chose a different vendor that Tuesday. I wrote Trey's rejection letter myself. Professional, factual, nothing personal except the signature block, where for 6 years I'd hidden behind initials. I typed my full name for the first time in 6 years. Ivy Duncan, founder and CEO. There are cleaner forms of honesty, but I've never found one more satisfying to sign. It bounced, Trey's inbox was full, and got auto-resent to the general contact address. I didn't think twice until Reagan's text that night. Ivy? The office inbox is pages. Somewhere in Millhaven unread sat a letter with my full name signed at the bottom. The fuse was lit. Nobody had noticed yet. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, a news crew filmed our prep for the evening broadcast. I stayed behind the clipboard, but the camera drifted, and 5 seconds of my face aired across Denver under a banner about paper plates. 50 minutes away in a pediatric clinic waiting room, my sister stood up mid-sentence and stared at the television. She didn't say a word the whole drive home. She just typed, at every red light. What she typed landed in the group chat at 7:40, and Reagan sent it to me in real time. A photo of the TV screen. Guys, look who I found. She owns that huge cleaning company. Then 9 full minutes of silence, the busiest chat in Millhaven, staring at a ghost who'd come back wealthy in the one currency they'd always claimed she didn't have. My aunt broke first with a single question mark. Then my mother, and I want you to appreciate that after 6 years, this was her opening line. Is that our Ivy? Our possessive. From the woman who wrote the message my dignity bounced off of. Then everyone typing at once. Has anyone kept her number? Does she know about the house? Don't mention the house right away, that last one from Paige. Strategy in writing. 11 minutes in. I turned my phone face down and kept counting 300 place settings in the warehouse until 10 that night. It rang the whole drive home like something trapped. At midnight, I turned it over. 89 missed calls from 14 numbers. I played only the first voicemail. My mother's voice pitched up into her church register, a voice I hadn't heard aimed at me since before I wore a uniform. Sweetheart, we saw you on the news. We've been looking for you everywhere, looking for me everywhere. I'd been 50 minutes down the highway with my name in the state business registry the whole time. I laughed once, deleted it, and slept easy. It always comes easy, once the receipts start arriving in real time. Wednesday, Paige finally opened the Whitfield inbox and found my rejection letter signed in full, dated before the newscast. Rejected by the little sister before the family even knew she was alive. For cause, on the merits. Her daughter said the kitchen went weird quiet. Then Paige did what Paige does. Turned humiliation into a plan before lunch. Thanksgiving was tomorrow. The news had said exactly where 300 people would be at noon, and you can't decline family standing in front of you. My mother added the detail that still takes my breath away. We'll bring a pie, Opal's recipe. Grandma's pie. Carried like a passport to a table run by the granddaughter she'd raised to know exactly what it was worth. My aunt showed up at my office that afternoon as the family's scout. Purse clutched like a casserole. Working her way toward the real cargo, your parents are going through something awful with the house, and family is family. I handed her a flyer. Doors open tomorrow at noon. Everyone gets a chair. But there's no private meeting and no conversation about the house. Ever. She left with it in her purse. Wednesday night, I walked the finished warehouse alone. 300 chairs squared, 300 place cards set, each one an invitation where once 8 had been a wall. Reagan called at 9. They're coming tomorrow, all of them with a pie. They're planning to make it a reunion in front of your cameras. I looked down the length of those tables for a long moment. Then set 3 more chairs, I said. Not forgiveness, just a rule holding. Nobody stands in my doorway holding a pie while 300 people watch. Whatever happens tomorrow happens with everyone seated and fed. Even them. If your phone has ever lit up like that, only after you had something they wanted. Type 89 in the comments, and stay with me, because what happened next is the part of this story I've never told anyone until now. The paper ran the profile at 6 that morning, the founder who framed a paper plate. By 11, the warehouse was everything I'd built it to be: steam, cider, a piano, Mrs. Holly's installed at the head table with her dog at her feet. I was carrying a tray of rolls when the noise changed, rolling table by table toward the door. My mother in her church coat. My father with his hat in his hands, Paige, Trey, Lily, and a pumpkin pie held out like a flag of surrender. My mother didn't walk toward me. She made an entrance, arms opening with every step, voice pitched to Carrie. My baby, there you are, we found you. Real tears, she's always been able to cry on schedule. Behind her, Paige already filming. Trey peeled off toward the sponsor tables. Lily hung back by the coats, 13 and mortified. the only one who'd walked in with clean hands. My mother held the pie up between us, Opal's pumpkin for a fresh start. 300 people watched me look at it, then a chair scraped and Mrs. Holly's rose on her cane. I remember you, Sandra. I remember a plate on a porch. I was there. The room went perfectly, attentively still. A misunderstanding, my mother tried, turning toward her. That story got twisted years ago. She was good. 6 years of rehearsal will do that. But I'd already lifted the frame off my office wall and set it flat on the head table. The plate, my name, big round capitals, that long, gentle tail. My mother glanced at it and away. Fast. My father couldn't stop looking. His shoulders came down off their hooks and I watched him age, in real time. Dad, I said quietly, the plate was Mom's idea. You just watched, right? Paige, mid-live stream, laughed before she could stop herself. Dad wrote it. Mom told him to put it out and she heard her own voice land in 300 ears and stopped. My father's hands tightened on his hat. Your mother said if I let you in smelling like that, you could eat outside, he said, eyes wet. I wrote your name nice. It was all I could think to do. I didn't have a speech ready. What I had was 6 years of not raising my voice in rooms where I held the power. So I spoke at bedtime story volume, and 300 people leaned in to catch it, a kind of loud my mother never managed by shouting. You taught me exactly what a seat at your table costs. It costs everything you are. I stopped paying 6 years ago. I laid it out like a checklist, the double shift, the unanswered text, the locked door, the 8 place cards, the message about the porch. Word for word, then the last item nobody in Millhaven had ever heard. The gas money, 3 years of it into your hand. It carried that second mortgage, you know it. The bank knows it. I stopped 6 years ago this month. Now the whole town can read the legal notices and do the math. I didn't accuse. I inventoried. The room turned toward my mother with the stillness of a jury that had already decided. Her register broke first, then the mask under it. She slammed the pie down hard enough to crack the dish. After everything I sacrificed, you owe this family, we gave you everything. Then, sweeping her arm at my tables, my china, my guests, you think these people respect you? Look at you, you scrub their toilets. The silence had texture, and into it came a sound I'll smile about on my deathbed, chairs pushing back all around the room. Unhurried, my crew, Selena, Marcus, standing at attention. 100+ people who scrubbed toilets for a living, rising around 300 guests without a word, just standing. My mother turned in a slow circle and failed for the first time in her life to find one face buying it. So I gave her the last line she'd ever get from me. Gently. Her own sentence from the day I was stripping bed 14. Just leave her plate outside, she'll get the hint. Paige went the color of my china. How did you? Reagan stood too. I kept the screenshots, Paige, all of them. Each of them got handed back exactly what they'd brought. My mother got her audience and burned her reputation in front of it in 4 minutes of footage. My sister got the internet, her own sentence attached to her name, in every share by nightfall. Trey tried one last angle with the sponsors, surely, family, a second look, and got the whole ruling in 3 sentences, at conversation volume, in front of witnesses. And my father got the hardest sentence in the room, which turned out to be mercy. You can stay and eat, Dad. Everyone eats here. That's the difference. He took off his coat, sat down at the nearest open place card, and stayed. My mother left the way storms leave loud, then all at once. Pie dish abandoned. She didn't even wait for Paige, who pocketed her phone and pulled Trey out by the sleeve. The room let them go without a sound, which felt more final than booing ever could. Then there was Lily, stranded by the coats, red-eyed, holding her own elbows. I crossed the room as the microphone announced dinner was served. I held out my hand the way you'd offer it to something wild and gentle at once. Sit with me. She looked toward the door her mother had gone through, then back at me. Okay, she said in the smallest voice. Then, testing it, Aunt Ivy. 6 years, and finally someone in that family said my name right. Dinner went on, because dinner was always the whole point. My father passed the rolls and thanked every volunteer by name. Lily worked through 2 kinds of pie and 17 questions about how a cleaning company runs. The plate lay flat at the head of the table all afternoon, and people touched the table edge beside it on their way for seconds, like a memorial, which I suppose it was. The week after, I blocked the old numbers and the 30 new ones that bloomed to replace them. My mother's final voicemail turned, at the 2-minute mark, from tears into what the family needed me to understand about the house. I deleted it before she finished. The house went the way filed paperwork goes. I didn't catch it. My parents moved into a small apartment across town. I set my father's card next to the framed plate and finally understood same handwriting both times. A man who wrote what he couldn't say, once in shame, once in something better. I haven't called him back, but I haven't thrown the card away either, which is its own kind of answer, just a slower one. Paige sent one text from a number I hadn't blocked yet. You've made your point. No apology in it. A referee's whistle from a woman who'd run out of game. I didn't reply. Some silences answer themselves. She taught me that herself once through a locked storm door. What I did instead was set up an education trust in Lily's name, untouchable, unlockable at 18, no strings for any adult in Millhaven. She takes the bus in on Saturdays now, badge and all. The youngest volunteer on our roster, entirely her own idea. Reagan runs our community programs full-time. The screenshots are retired. The receipts are settled. Here's what I know now that I didn't. Sitting in that car with a warm plate on the wheel. Family isn't the people who share your name. It's the people who make sure you never eat alone. And the cleanest thing I ever did was walk away from a table that only had room for my shame. That's my story. One paper plate, 89 calls, a table with 300 chairs. If someone ever made you eat outside in any sense of that word, go build your own table and build it long. Share this with someone who needs a seat today. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.